Okay, let's start by taking a look at the object that we're going to be using for this demo. This is a single mesh object that has multiple faces. And just to show you, there is a face right here. There's one right here. There's one right here. And there's one right here. And we're going to be using all of those. And the scripts will work with multiple objects that are linked together, and you can control faces and objects and all that stuff. And this demo will just use a single object that has multiple faces. The first thing we'll do then is create a HUD, and I'm going to step you through how to do this so that it's the easiest it can possibly be. The first thing you'll want to do when you start a HUD is make sure that your arrows are lined up this way, and that is the red arrow is facing away from you, the green arrow is facing to the left, and the blue arrow is facing up. If you do this, you'll have far fewer problems with rotations and all that stuff, and this is what's required for these scripts. So I'm going to get this down to the right size. I'm going to pull this in like this, and we're going to start from here. The very common way to make a HUD is to have a single texture on it that has displays for all the buttons, but as opposed to having buttons have textures on them themselves. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm only loading one texture that has everything on it, and then what we're going to do is put prims over top of these areas that we want clickable, and those prims will be set to transparent. And that's how we'll build this. So first thing we're going to do, as you can see here, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be texturing the main part of the the main part of the top with these buttons over here, and the trim is either going to be black or white, and that's going to consist of the part that runs down the middle, the bottom, and the sleeves. So first thing you want to do when you build a HUD is you want to add the prims where you're going to need them for clickable areas. So let me do this real quick and just show you how I do it, and then we'll get to the scripting part. So I basically make the prims be pretty small, and we're going to need, this is going to be the minimize button. So we're going to put one over here, and I'm not going to make these transparent yet. I'll show you first what I do in my process, and then we'll fix all that stuff. So I'm going to make these about the right size. It's kind of impossible to get them positioned correctly when you don't have the HUD on, but we'll get things close enough. So we'll just make a duplicate of these. We're going to have a prim here, and then we're going to need some prims down here, and these are going to be for our buttons. And for this demo, the first demo, I'm going to do a HUD that just has a single page on it. The script does support having multiple pages, and I'll show you how that works too in the next video. So we'll get these close, about like that. And of course with a HUD, it doesn't matter what you do as far as where these prims sit, how far away, if they're intersecting with the main one, if they're out like this, because when the HUD is on, it's two-dimensional and it's facing you like this, and there's no depth at all. The last thing I'm going to do is make one more prim off to the side here, and I will show you what this one is going to be when we get to that part. This one is going to sit up here like that. Okay, so there's the basics of what we're going to do. Then what we want to do is select all of these prims, because we're going to link this. This one on the side is going to wind up being the root prim, so we're going to shift click it to turn off the selection, shift click it again to turn on the selection, which now makes it the last prim selected, which means that'll be the root. Then we'll press Control L, and that will link this all together into a single object. So basically here is our HUD. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, let me name it real quick. And we'll take it, let me just pull it down into this folder here. The first time you do this, you'll have to pick Attach to HUD, and we're going to put it in the center. And it's a little small for working with, so what I'm going to do is make it bigger for this video so that you can see everything. Okay, so there's obviously some adjustment we should do for the buttons and everything to get them to lay in the correct place, but what we'll do first is just get a single texture working so you can kind of see how easy it is to get retexturing working. We'll put this off here. In the contents here, we're going to take this script, which is the HUD script, and we'll put that inside of there, and we'll put this item script inside of the item that we want to texture. It's easiest to work with the HUD when you have it on, and it's easiest to work with the item when you don't have it on, at least in my opinion. The HUD script you probably won't have to do much of anything with, so we're going to focus mainly on the item script. And we have an old script in there that we'll get rid of. So this is the one we're going to be working with. First thing we're going to do is set these things up so that we have these buttons working. First one, let's do edit linked, and we'll pick this one. There are several types of buttons that you can have on the HUD. One of them, since this is going to be a texturing button, all texture buttons are named TX. And then in the description, you're going to pick a name that it represents what this button is. For our sake, what I'm going to name it is just main, and I'm going to call it Sage as the color. I'm going to set it to transparent, just so you can actually see the color. Let me just make sure the size is going to be okay, so that it covers the whole picture, so that anywhere you click on there, you'll get response from the script. So we'll call it main-sage, and that's because it's going to texture the main part of the texture, and it's the color sage. And this one we're going to call TX also because it's a texturing button. And we'll call it main-rose, and this one we'll call main-beige. And let's get both of these to be transparent as well. Okay, so you don't really have to do anything with the script on the HUD. Everything happens inside the item script for the most part. So now that we have these three buttons here, and they're named TX, which means they're a texture button, and they have a name inside the description field, which means what the button is, now we can move over to the item itself and do what it needs. So the first thing we'll do here is I'm going to show you a couple things about editing this script. What you'll find here is that there's this is called a variable, and it's a list variable. And let me show you just a couple things about editing lists. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to show you how this works. This is an empty list, and the brackets here show where you're going to put your items, and it has to end in a semicolon. A list consists of multiple items that you separate by a comma, and it can have either numbers or it can have words, and any text needs to be surrounded by quotes, and you can have they can go in any order. For this script, there's going to be a certain order that they have to be in. The main thing that's important here is that everything has to be separated by commas, and the last one doesn't have a comma on it. And if you don't follow this format, the script won't compile, and if the script doesn't compile, it's obviously not going to run, and so you'll have problems there. So that's the basics of editing a list. The other important thing to know is that the carriage returns, line feeds, spacing, things like that don't matter. So this, what I've just done here, this is still the exact same list, and it doesn't affect whether it compiles or whether it works. So you can have things spread out like this if it's easier to look at each item, or if it's easier to keep track and be organized, and that's what actually the script does. So I'll show you that. So this is the actual the real list that we're going to be editing. That's going to have all of our textures in it. What I'm going to do is delete all of these examples here, though, so you can just kind of see it happen live. At the very end of the list, there's this last text entry, which just has this text in it. Just always leave that there. You do all your editing up here on top. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to match up one of these buttons. So let's do rows first. Let's say that this is the one we're going to be editing. And if you'll remember, this is the description, edit linked, this guy, object, general. Oh, sorry, it's beige. This is the scheme, basically, is what it's called. This is the name that's going to be matched up. When you click this button, this script is going to look up that name and see what you want to do upon clicking that button. So we'll fix this and call this beige. Then remember, everything has a comma after it. The next thing you're going to put is a number, and the number represents the prim number that you want to change. In our case, we have only a single object that has just one prim to it, and so the number for that is always going to be 0. The next thing you're going to put is another number, which is the face number that you want to affect when this button is pressed. And what we want to affect here is this, oops, small screen here, this face right here, which is the main color. And if you look up here in your edit dialog, you can see that this is face number 3. So here we'll put 3. The next thing you're going to put is a text item, and this is going to be the UUID that we want to use when that button is pressed. And the beige one, I have this off screen right here. Let me just copy this in. That's the beige texture. Now, this is only one, but let me just show you that this is going to work as it is here. So we'll just click the Save button. Whenever you click the Save button, you must see this message down here, Save Complete, Compile Successful. If you don't see that, it's going to be telling you that you have some error in the script. So that has to, this message has to appear every time you press Save. At this point, we're working, and all we have to do is click this button, and you can see that that texture is applied to that face. Adding the other ones is super easy and is really just a matter of copy and paste for the most part. Let's do this again. Now remember, everything has a comma after it, even after your last item. So we're going to do another one here. We'll call this one rows. Same prim number, same face number, but now this is going to have a different UUID. So let me get rid of this one and paste in the correct one. We'll press Save again. We got a successful compile. And at this point now we can press this one too. And now both of these work. So you can see that adding them is pretty quick. Let's do the last one here just for completeness sake. Again, we'll copy this section here, paste it here, and we're going to call this one Sage. And let's get the correct UUID, which is this one. Press Control S for save. And again, you have that working now. So that's a single texture, single button. So clicking directly changes one face with one texture. Now we're going to do something a little bit different on these down here. These trim buttons are going to affect multiple faces. The way we do that is we're going to, oh, dogs. We're going to go Edit Linked, and here's the prim for white, as you can see underneath there. We're going to call this TX because it's a texture button. And that's the name we're going to use, trim-white. Fix this one up a little bit. Probably don't need to be so picky about this, do I? TX is a texture button. Trim black. Okay, so again, no script editing on the HUD. We're just naming things correctly. And since we named it TX, the script knows how to handle it. Okay, next we'll go back to the item. Actually, we already have the script open. And now we're going to add one for trim-black. That's going to match that description field on the button when we press it. So it's going to be the same prim number because we only have one. Now we want the face. And for this, what we're going to want is select face. We want to do this face here, which is 2, this face here, which is 1, and this face here, which is 4. So 1, 2, and 4 are the ones we want. What you can do is you can put those here, just like that, so it can affect multiple faces with a single texture on a single click. Here's my black texture UUID. We'll save this real fast just to make sure that it works. Aha. See, there's an error that you might get, and that's because I forgot the comma there. So we'll save that. We'll click this button, and you can see that that texture is put on multiple faces. We already named this one trim white, didn't we? So we can just copy this. Same faces. And here's my white texture. Saved, compiled, and that changes that to white, changes it to black. So now you have full retexturing going on, and that's really very little code. All we did basically is add sections for each of the textures that we want. This is really the button. This really identifies the button. This identifies what you want to do when that button is clicked. In these cases, we only changed one face. In this case here, we changed 3 faces at once, and this one we changed 3 faces at once too. So that's the basics of getting retexturing working. What we're also going to do, sorry, edit linked. We want this one and this one. Let's just make these transparent. What I'll do in the next video is show you the rest of the HUD, how to set up these buttons, what they do, and then in the video after that, I'll show you how to make a multi-page HUD. Back soon.